I'm just saying I'm not finished yet. Search for it, swing for it, discover the me that lives in yes. Stand for it, stretch for it. It's my time, imagine my best. Run for it, reach for it, uncover the me that lives in yes. I know, yes I know, there'll be miracles wherever I go. It's not work, it's play. I can make magic today.
Hi everyone, welcome to Senior Nation. I'm your host, Phyllis Ayman, and you are listening to the SORC TVRadio Network, WTSN, Washington, D.C. We are indeed a senior nation with 100 plus million adults over the age of 50. And we are here to bring you up-to-date information about successful aging, healthful longevity, and becoming what I call a well-ager to dignity, respect, quality of life, and quality of care for our parents, our grandparents, and loved ones. We at Senior Nation will be your trusted voice for informed choices, meaningful conversations, and a vibrant life at every age. Though the SORC TVRadio Network is known for its dedication to bringing the highest level of jazz content to the viewing and listening audience, the owners of the network are also dedicated to bringing this important content to this fast-growing demographic. And I'm always so grateful for the opportunity. So let's get with tonight's show. I'm pleased that Mel Albin, who conceived the idea for this show, is able to join me again to discuss how film has approached, represented, and handled the issue of ageism and the experience of older adults through the decades. On a previous show, we discussed films dating from 1930 through the end of the century. But Mel and I have selected 5 films dealing with this topic from 2000 to the present. Mel's extensive background and interest in the family dates back to the 1990s, when he conceived and discussed the issues related to the 4-generation family. He was truly ahead of his time, so I'm so thrilled that Mel could be here with me again this evening. Hi, Mel.
Hey, Phyllis, how are you?
I'm doing great. What about yourself?
I'm doing fine. I'm looking forward to another fun evening talking about film.
Yeah, I mean, it's... we've gone back and forth with a number of films. It's hard to select 5. There are so many.
Yeah.
There are really so many. But, and of the films that we selected, there's only one that really deals with a woman as the main character. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting that when we looked at the films, over the course of time, that, the ones we selected that at that time were the most poignant, that most of them involved men, but I'm sure there are many others out there, and maybe we'll do another show about it. I mean, who knows? But anyway, the first one is a 2002 film about Schmidt, which stars Jack Nicholson, who plays a recently widowed and retired man who grapples with life's meaning and confronts his past choices after his wife's death. And you and I talked about this quite a bit before the show, about how, so many people have this job and they just go through the formalities of life, the routines, and they don't really think too much about the meaning of life. And then they're left without that position. And then they turn around and they say, what is my life amounted to? So you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, I do. I found the character Warren Schmidt fascinating. He's a man totally without resources. He has no intellectual curiosity. He may never have read a book for pleasure. He lives in a home decorated with sets of collector's items accumulated by his wife, each in his display case as they were originally purchased. On his retirement day, he's left with nothing. Nothing but kind of his empty hands. He doesn't do anything anymore. He has never developed any outside interests. He has spent his entire life working at a job, and that could have been done by anybody. or apparently nobody in this case.
Correct.
You know, and he goes back to the office even to see if he can answer any questions for the guy that replaced him, and the new guy doesn't have a single question. So Schmidt is standing there for a lifetime of work. He's not accumulating even one piece of information that is needed by his replacement. So he reminds me of Thoreau and Thoreau's important statement when he said, "Men lead lives of quiet desperation."
Right.
And this reminds me so much of Schmidt. When the first thing he does when he retires, he looks at his wife and says, "Who is this woman?"
Right.
I mean, he hardly ever saw her. Who's this old woman with me? And he has failed relationships with his children. The important part about this movie, and we'll show the trailer in a second. The important part about this movie is that people work hard at jobs that they don't always think represent what they could have been, and it's depressing. And suddenly they lose the context of even the most meaningless of jobs. People they would see every day at work, the rhythms of the day. They would get up, have a cup of coffee, get in the car, drive to the same job the same way. Even though it's routinized, time becomes an important factor in people's happiness. And
Correct.
suddenly you're away from all of this. And with a guy like Schmidt, what does he do? And this is
Right.
true today. It costs $300,000 on average to raise a kid from 0 to 18. When you think of cost of healthcare, daycare, you can't risk very often moving from job to job. A lot of people do it, and it affects their retirement because they never get to build one. But so many people feel they're being undervalued. They have meaningless jobs, and Schmidt kind of represents, the process of aging with no future. And it's not just monetary. It's place, it's context, it's self-worth. It's very difficult. And I don't think we take seriously enough the impact of retirement.
No, I think 100% you're correct. I think also it is, I think you're right. People fall into jobs, not positions, but jobs, and they just do them because they fell into it, or it was convenient, or it was a good salary, whatever it is. But, my experience, over the course of decades, obviously, is that also it depends on your mindset and how you approach this job. And I have seen, and I'm not saying this is true, across the board, probably, less frequent than is the case, for more people. But I have seen people do very menial jobs, but have such pride and joy in what they were doing. But that's I think, a very special thing, that they took tremendous value from it. I remember, this is back in the 90s, and I was working in a nursing home at the time that had a ventilator unit for people who were dependent on mechanical ventilation to breathe. And they were going for certification from the state of New York to have their unit certified. I was one of the first, I think, in the area. Anyway, the administrator, they passed the certification, and the administrator came around, who started his career as a pot washer, actually, came around and thanked the porter on the unit. And the porter said, "Well, but I didn't do anything here. I mean, it's the nurses, the respiratory therapists, the doctors." He said, "Absolutely not, because you do your job with such pride. This unit was so clean that if it wasn't, we wouldn't have passed." Now, kudos to the administrator, who obviously understood the importance of recognizing everybody's contribution, likely because he started out as a pot washer and worked his way up. But obviously that guy really, took tremendous pride in his position. So if people, I think, could do that, but that's a mindset issue. And that's, that takes tremendous don't know what you would call that. It's just to develop an attitude that you just didn't fall into this thing. I don't know. I think it's difficult. What do you think?
Well, look, it is. And I mean, this could be a whole other show because I did a lot of work for a major company in New Jersey as a consultant. And when they did managers did the annual evaluation of their employees, oftentimes they didn't even do it. They just wrote something fictitious.
Mm.
So, for a janitor to be recognized, here you have people that are in technology and management, and they're often just, not even recognized. Their annual evaluation is just a fiction
Right.
write-up. And, so it's very difficult. But let's play this clip, and then we have to move on to other
Okay.
movies. But this is the first one. This is about Schmidt.
My name is Warren R. Schmidt. I am 66 years old and recently retired. Helen and I have been married 42 years.
Don't dilly-dally.
Lately, I find myself asking the same question. Who is this old woman who lives in my house? But then there's Jeannie. She's our only. Recently, she got engaged. I think she could have done a heck of a lot better.
It's not a pyramid scheme. A lot of people think it's a pyramid scheme, but it's not.
People used to raise their eyebrows because I breastfed him until he was almost 5, and I say, well, you just look at the results.
My father didn't think so much of you at first.
Jeannie, I'm on my way out to see you.
You're coming now?
Don't tell me you couldn't use a little extra help with all those wedding arrangements. Life is short, and I can't afford to waste another minute.
Do you have any pictures of your daughter in your wallet?
No, I might have one of George Washington.
Warren.
I hope I'm not intruding.
As father of the groom, I'd like to welcome our guest.
Can't we just enjoy our food?
I just wanted to acknowledge that we're gathered together as a family for the very first time.
I know what I want, and I know what I've got to do.
What's up?
You're making a big mistake. I mean, look at these people.
All of a sudden, you're taking an interest in what I do?
I know we're all pretty small in the big scheme of things, and I suppose the most you can hope for is to make some kind of difference. But what kind of difference have I made?
Warren, what is the matter?
I'm okay.
It still seems pretty weird for this to be happening today.
I have these left over from my hysterectomy. They've expired, but I think it's okay.
Mr. Schmidt will have a seat right there. All right? Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Schmidt?
Well, there you have it.
That was terrific. That was really terrific. But he says, what have I done?
Yeah.
Right? What purpose do I have? And the daughter who says, like, now you care about me, because he was never around. He was working, his head was to the grindstone, provided for his family, and now he comes up for air, and she doesn't even know who he is either.
But you know what's interesting in this movie too? For example, her mother is irrelevant.
Right.
And this movie is trying to focus on a man, a husband, a father, and now a retiree. And so the focus is really on him, but his wife, the daughter's mother, just really has no role and no impact. Anyway, I think it's a really compelling movie because it does talk about that first day you retire, and then what do you do?
Right.
I think I mentioned this last time. I used to do retirement workshops for Westinghouse in Orlando, Florida, and a woman, her husband was retiring that day, and he worked for Westinghouse for like 40 years, and she said, I married him for good and for bad, but never for lunch.
That
And
was a good one.
so it's not just the person retiring, it's their partner that has to now have this person there 24 hours a day who is gone 8 to 10 hours a day every day.
So interestingly enough, I was watching the other day a rerun of Everyone Loves Raymond. Everybody Loves Raymond, which was a great show. And there is this one episode where Frank tries to paint their house, and he decides on the color, and they have a big fight and whatever. And what's her name? I forgot what's the wife's name? I forgot. I'll think of it, I'm sure. And she says, please let him do this job. He retired and he's driving me crazy. Please, Marie, please let him do something. And then she comes back and she says, I found out that he didn't retire. He was actually fired. And can you imagine how this must make him feel? That he doesn't have the role that he had, or the authority he had, telling people what to do or directing them. And it was really very touching that she came to realize. At first it was, please get him out of the house. But then she realized what he must be grappling with inside. And I think it's, very, in this case, he retired, but he was probably forced to retire. So that's in a way kind of,
well, even today, ageism in the workplace is still a highly prejudicial issue.
Oh, absolutely.
I spent a lot of my life as an academic, and what they want to do is take their young PhDs and get them out there and get them jobs teaching. And as you get older, it's almost impossible to get an academic position. They don't say that, but it's the way it works, So it is a difficult situation. Let's play the next trailer, then we'll talk about it. Let's just play it because the next trailer,
one is The Notebook.
Right, it's The Notebook.
Which you really wanted us to cover this film.
Yes, because it shows people at two stages of their life. It shows them when they were young, and now it shows them when they've aged.
Right.
And it's about unrequited love that never worked, a romance that never worked out. But as they get older, they reunite, and it's about love lost and trying to recapture. It's a wonderful movie, and it's with Ryan Gosling and James Garner. It's really very good. So let's take a look at the trailer, and then we can come back and talk about it.
Okay, sure.
It was a magical summer. Noah was a country boy. Allie was from the city. They met the night of the carnival. They had nothing in common, but after seeing Allie that night, something inside Noah snapped.
Will you go out with me?
No!
No?
Ah!
Damn, my hand's slipping.
Okay, fine. I'll go out with you.
No, don't do me any favors.
No, I want to.
Say it again.
I want to go out with you!
All right, we'll go out.
They fell in love, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Do you want to dance with me?
Sure. This is a good story. I think I've heard it before.
It's like a dream.
So what do you do, Noah?
I work at the lumberyard.
How much do you make at your job?
40 cents an hour.
It has got to stop.
Noah?
He's a nice boy, but he is not for you.
I don't see how it's gonna work.
You are not to see him anymore, and that's final.
From the best-selling novel by Nicholas Sparks.
Oh, miss. How's about that date?
Comes a story.
It's normal not to forget your first love, but I want you for myself. Marry me.
About what we long for.
I saw your picture in the paper, and I just wanted to see if you were okay.
What we settle for.
I have a fiancé waiting for me.
What happened? Who did you choose?
And who we're meant for.
Why didn't you write me? I waited for you for 7 years.
I wrote you every day for a year.
New Line Cinema presents Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, James Garner, Jenna Rollins, James Marsden, with Sam Shepard and Joan Allen in a Nick Cassavetes film.
I read to her, and she remembers.
The Notebook.
Wow.
Phil, it's a wonderful movie, and what's wonderful about it is the way in which it unfolds. It's the same couple at two different seasons in their lives.
Right.
We see their urgency of young romance, and then we see them as older people, and she's disappearing in the shadows of Alzheimer's, and he steadfastly is in love with her, and he reads from a notebook that he had saved about their early romance, and she says things like, "Gee, it's an interesting story. It sounds familiar."
Right.
And it's in his custom every day to go there and read to her from this notebook and tell their story of how they met, fell in love, they faced obstacles. Her mother was taking the letters he was writing to her when she was away from him and not giving her the letters, so she thought he had abandoned her. The mother thought he was beneath her social station and didn't want her to marry him, so she settles and marries somebody else because she never heard from him again. So, what's really interesting, he thinks that if only for a few minutes the clouds would part and she'd be able to remember. This is what he's looking for, and it's an amazing love story, and it's really a very interesting movie about Alzheimer's, and how in the early stages of Alzheimer's, we know that people are more lucid, but as they develop deeper symptoms, they lose memory. And the people around them are affected oftentimes more pronouncedly than the person who actually has the Alzheimer's.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have that lived experience as a professional, but I wanted to say, and maybe this is something that we'll explore down the road, but there are other films about Alzheimer's, and maybe it would be down the road interesting to do an episode on the different films, how Alzheimer's is depicted in different films. I think of Still Alice, and, there are several of them, but I think it's, even though there have been films about that, unfortunately, I don't think it's, as with many of the films that deal with aging or life, hasn't really changed our perspective about older people or, people with Alzheimer's. And that's, my greatest sorrow in all of this, that there's so many films that touch these issues, but as a society, we really it hasn't moved the needle on how we think about aging or older people. So.
No, it's true. But there's the romantic element of this movie, that it didn't work out when they were younger, and he wants so much for her to share the memories that he still has. And it's very touching, and it says a lot about the difficulties people have with Alzheimer's patients. Anyway.
I have to tell you honestly, my ex-husband, I helped my daughter find a suitable environment for him, as he couldn't live alone anymore. And about a year ago, I said to her, maybe I should go visit him. And she said, then I thought about it. And I said, I don't know if he'd remember me. I don't know how I would feel about that. Of course, he's my ex-husband. I hadn't seen him in a while, but, my heart still goes out to the fact that, especially working in this industry, that here was this man, the father of my children. And, I can imagine where he is. She tells me a little bit. And of course, I've worked with so many people who have Alzheimer's disease and their families. So it is, even somebody that I wasn't close to for years, I still feel that loss in a way.
Sure. Yeah, it's difficult.
The next one is The Bucket List, which is very different because it's a comedy.
Yeah.
It's a drama. It's a drama, but it's also, I guess, it has elements of comedic elements in it with, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, who escape their hospital and embark on a road trip to fulfill their life goals before they die, because they both have cancer, which isn't so funny. But some of the experiences are funny.
Well, that's a difficulty I kind of have with this movie. On the surface, it's about two guys who know they have terminally ill. They're both told they're going to die within a year from cancer. and they're roommates in the hospital, and they decide to embark on, because Morgan Freeman tells Jack Nicholson, somebody told me that I need to write down all the things that I want to do and do them before I'm no longer here. And they both start making a list, and in the list they're going to see the pyramids, climbing Mount Everest. There are things in there that are absolutely impossible for people in their 70s to climb Mount Everest when you have cancer.
Right.
But what appealed to me about the movie is that even when life is short, people want it to be longer. They want to fulfill needs they never had a chance to fulfill. And the shorter it becomes, the more important those things are. And that level, it was very, it was very emotional. It's an emotional movie. The problem I have with it too is Jack Nicholson is this super wealthy man who takes his private plane so they can embark on this.
Right.
And most, people with terminal cancer don't escape these kinds of realities like that.
Right.
So, it was an uneven movie, but the notion of a bucket list and people having unfulfilled dreams,
Well, not to interrupt, but last week when we had Jack York on from IN2L and Tailgate, and the first clip he showed of this woman Kay, who at 90 something went back to Italy, where she had was very young, got on a plane and went and married this man, I guess after he died or whatever, came back here, but she wanted to go back to Italy, and at 90 something she took that trip. And, for me, I said the same thing. People look at older people and think they don't have any dreams or goals or, wants. I mean, George Herbert Walker Bush had this idea to jump out of a plane when he was 92. I think he was 92 when he did it. That old people look at older people and think that's it for them. They've done it all, or they don't have any, secret desires to do something else. And that's totally untrue,
It is. And, so that's why I found the important element in this movie is that people still have lives they haven't lived yet. And as you get older, you start to think about, can I want to do some of these things.
Right.
My time is getting short. And unlike Schmidt, who had just difficulty just finding anything meaningful in his life, these guys go out to create the meaning.
Right.
And it's wonderful. So let's take a look at this movie. It's called The Bucket List. And then we'll come back and talk some more.
I run hospitals, not health spas. 2 beds to a room, no exceptions.
There was a survey once. 1,000 people asked if they could know in advance would they want to know the exact day of their death.
Who the hell is that? Who the hell are you?
96% of them said no.
Oh, God. What am I, in the morgue?
That was the first time I laid eyes on Edward Cole.
I want my own room.
You run hospitals, not health spas. 2 beds to a room, no exceptions.
Damned if I'm gonna spend the next 3 weeks laying next to Zombie Boy.
My freshman philosophy professor signed this exercise and called it a bucket list. We were supposed to make a list of all the things we wanted to do in our lives before we
kick the bucket. Cutesy.
It's pointless now.
We could do this. We should do this.
This is living! I hate your rotten guts!
Is he insane?
Depends.
You gonna drive it or buy it a dress?
Just getting to know each other.
I don't understand how you can run off with a total stranger.
I've got 45 years greased up under the hood of a car. I think I've earned some time for myself.
You got kids? I don't see her.
It's time.
Why are we, Oh, my God.
What are you so afraid of?
Just because I told you my story does not invite you to be a part of it.
Dear Edward, there's no way I can repay you for all you've done for me. So rather than try, I'm just going to ask you to do something else for me. Find the joy in your life.
You hate me?
Not yet.
We live, we die, and the wheels on the bus go round and round.
Proud of you.
Nobody cares what you think.
That was actually fantastic.
Yeah, the trailer is oftentimes better than the movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it captured every aspect, the essence of every the essence of every situation, every aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know, I loved what Morgan Freeman says to his daughter. You know, I've spent 45 years under the hood of a car. I think I've earned that right. And I think it reminds me of several years ago when I took up ballroom dancing. I've talked about this very often. Neither one of my kids, my daughter, my son, could tolerate it. They, for whatever reason, I would ask them. I couldn't get an answer from them as to why they couldn't stand the fact that I was dancing. I loved it. You know, I don't know if they had this vision of what I should be at that age. You know, it was about 10 years ago, so I was 60. You know, I knew other people whose kids just thought it was the greatest thing ever, but my kids didn't. And you know what? I loved it. So I just went ahead and continued doing it until, for whatever reason, I couldn't anymore. But I think there's a lesson even in that line that people earn the right to do what they want. And then kids think that they can start to tell the parents what to do, right?
That happens very often, you know.
Yeah, very often. Right?
As parents age, you know, kids are confused whether they're still a child to that parent, or now they become the parent because the parent is more childlike, and it's confusing. But you know, I want to talk about one of the aspects of this film that, again, is comedic, but it just kind of throws this whole movie out of whack. Just so if you're ever going to go see it, you know, Nicholson, who plays this guy Edward, who's, you know, enormously rich. He's about 70, and he's diagnosed with terminal cancer, just like Morgan Freeman, who's in the same room with him. Now, this guy's a billionaire, so why would he be sharing a room with Carter, who's Morgan Freeman? He's about the same age and the same prognosis, but a billionaire, why doesn't he have his own room? And the irony is, because it turns out Jack Nicholson owns the hospital.
Correct.
And he has a policy that all patients must double up. So he's caught from his own devices, you know, to make more money to have two people in a room rather than one. Now he's caught in his own policy. And so now he's stuck in a room with Morgan Freeman. And you know, it's interesting that Morgan Freeman brings humanity to Nicholson's character. And what Nicholson can do for Morgan Freeman is free him, because Morgan Freeman doesn't have that kind of wealth. He can give him the opportunity to live out his fantasies, the things that will make his last year meaningful.
And feel exhilarated and feel alive. I mean, jumping out of the plane or you know, buying that car. I mean, I'm thinking also when you said about you know, an older adult child who starts to feel that they need to parent, which is a terrible thing, really. Parent, you know, a parent because they may be losing some of their ability. I'm thinking of it not only that, but now they have a family of their own. So they have a different persona and a different, you know, they see themselves differently. They see themselves as a parent. So they think they could just parent everybody, you know.
Well, this is, you know, you mentioned in your introduction, I have spent a lot of time on the 4-generation family. I started looking at that in the 1970s, and you know what struck me was role dispersal. If you have a parent who's in their 80s and 90s, They probably have a child in their 60s. They probably have a child in their 40s, and they have a child who's in their teens. So in a 4-generation family, the people in the middle, their children to their parents, their grandchildren to their grandparents, their parents to their children, and the confusion between who you are and who they are, and who's the, you know, it used to be when you're 60 or 70, you're the matriarch and patriarch or patriarch of the family, and that's not true anymore. So you could be in your 60s and you're wondering, you know, I still got to take care of my parents. I got grandchildren. I got the role confusion and the difficulty of trying to figure out, when I talk to my parent, am I talking to my parent as an adult, which I am, or am I talking to them as a child to my parent, which I still am?
Right. So interestingly enough, I just want to make a comment about what you just said. I was talking to a friend earlier today who told me that his I think it's his grandmother, I guess, his godmother, anyway, age 92, said whatever she said to him. And he said, like, how dare she say that? I said, well, she's earned the right to do that. I mean, she's 92. And he said, well, the worst thing is I can't really, even though I'm 62, I really can't say anything to her, you know, because she's 92. I said, well, that's the whole point. And I think that people don't realize, you know, I had somebody many, many years ago. I was in my 40s at the time. I've talked about this situation before. I was working in a facility. I had met this woman several years before. I think she must have been in her 60s. I think so. And they called me to work in this building, and I was there and as a speech and language pathologist, and I was in the nursing office, and this woman said something that I was just appalled. I couldn't believe what she had said. I have no recollection what it was. And she said to me, someday you will realize, she said, I earned that right. You will see it someday. And I get it now. Of course, I couldn't get it in my 40s. When in 50s, I was a little more, 60s, a little more. But yeah, now I'm in my 70s. And, you know, that's just what it is. So I think there's certainly an element of that. But so a person in their 40s also thinks they've earned the right to say, do certain things and act in certain ways, especially if they do have a family of their own.
Yeah, look, it's all true. And I think today, what makes this movie more immediate is, you know, the economy we live in, where, you know, daycare can be half of a person's weekly income for their children. If they have 2 or 3 children, the bill is enormous. And, you know, and so it's hard to accumulate money for the kind of retirement on Golden Pond that we thought we would have one day.
Right.
And it creates, creates tension, you know, and grandparents start to give grandchildren money set aside for college, and they start to, you know, to bleed their own retirement plan. You know, there's a lot about the difficulties of aging today that is still very relevant to that movie.
Yeah, so, no, I agree 100%. Let's go on to the next one. We have about 20 minutes. The next one is Gran Torino from 2008.
Yeah, this is a great
movie. I'm sorry. Yeah, Gran Torino, right, from 2000.
It is.
Right.
And it stars Clint Eastwood.
Right.
As an American, he's an American icon, and that's the role he almost always plays, some kind of iconic role. And this time he plays a cantankerous racist, a beer-drinking, retired Detroit auto worker, and who keeps a shotgun ready to lock and load, sitting on his porch. And you know, it's like he's like the Dirty Harry of old people.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, here he is on a pension, and you know what you realize is, this auto worker is now retired. And he just sits on his porch. He has the same kind of life as we first saw in the very first movie we talked about Schmidt. The difference is he has neighbors who are, to him, the Chinese. Anybody Asian in this movie to Clint Eastwood is Chinese, and he gets involved with the family. Because they get involved, the kids get involved with gangs that are relatives, and Clint Eastwood has to step up and he tells this gang that's trying to intimidate or molest his neighbor's daughter. He tells this gang, sometimes you make judgments about people because of what you see, but they're not the right judgments. You never know what you're really getting yourself into. And Clint Eastwood is saying that we underestimate people when we look at them because of their, how age takes its toll on people. But we think in some ways it diminishes their faculties, their abilities. And Clint Eastwood says no. So I think the movie is very, very good. And it's also about community, that this guy becomes a hero in the community because he stuck up for this daughter of this Chinese or Oriental family living next to him. And he becomes a hero in the community. And that's the last thing he wants to hear. And, he says, why do I have to have these Chinese living next to me? My luck. But he becomes very involved with the family, with the son that lives in that house next door. The son wants to go out and retaliate against his cousin and the gang that molested his sister. And Clint Eastwood locks him in the basement, and Clint Eastwood goes and confronts the gang. And what's interesting in this moment, Clint Eastwood, who in the first episode, the first part of the movie, had a gun and told them to let her go because he pulled the gun out. And they said, whoa, who's this 70-year-old guy pulling a gun on us? He goes back this time unarmed because he knows the only way to get rid of this element within the community is to sacrifice himself. He has cancer. He was diagnosed with cancer again, just like in the other movie. And he goes there, and the first time he reached into his jacket and pulled out a gun. This time he reaches into his jacket and they think he's going to pull out a gun and they kill him. And he wanted them to do that because now they're all going to go to jail.
Right.
And it's poignant. It talks about a life fulfilled in death. He was trying to fulfill what he thought his life meant.
Right.
And dying was his fulfillment. And we often don't think about the dignity of dying. Like some people want to die with dignity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's watch this trailer.
Yep. Let's see the Clint Eastwood trailer. Gran Torino. 1 second. There it is.
2008.
Yeah.
Come here, girl.
Stop! Let go!
What you looking at, old man?
Ever notice how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with? That's me.
Man, you crazy, man. Get out of here, man.
Dad, you worked hard your whole life. Maybe it's time you started thinking about taking it easier. These places are nothing like what you'd think they'd be. They're great. Kicking us out on his birthday. I told you this was a bad idea.
What the hell these Chinese have to move in this neighborhood for?
Dorothy mentioned specifically that it was her desire for you to go to confession.
And I confess that I have no desire to confess to a boy that's just out of the seminary. Get off my lawn.
You better watch your back.
Thank you.
I heard there was some trouble in the neighborhood. Why didn't you call the police?
I prayed that they would show up, but nobody answered. Why are you bringing me all this garbage anyway?
Because you saved Tao.
I didn't save anybody.
You're a hero to the neighborhood.
I'm not a hero.
We're having barbecue. You want to come over? We've got beer, too.
I might as well drink with strangers. Those guys were here the other night. What about them?
Just a gang.
And here's the deal. You stay away, because if I have to come back here again, it's gonna be ugly.
What was it like to kill a man?
You don't want to know. Tao and Sue are never gonna find peace in this world, as long as that gang's around.
What are you gonna do, Walt?
Whatever it is, they won't have a chance.
Wow, powerful.
Very, very powerful. And and as I said earlier, it's Clint Eastwood making a statement. Don't look at my appearance and judge me.
Right.
And we often do that. We too often do that.
And we do that, not only for older people, but, he did about the Chinese neighbors, and then he, developed a relationship with them. But that's, I often talk about profiling, and I don't mean profiling like the police, we use that term in terms of that. But, we all stereotype. We think we don't, but we do. And, there certainly are stereotypes, and that's what Senior Nation is all about, really, that there's a tendency for our society to stereotype older people in a certain way. I tell this story, I think it's 2 years ago now. In the summer, there's a little place near me where I enjoy eating breakfast sometimes on Sundays. And I went there this one particular time, and there were no tables inside. There were 2 little tables outside. So I sat down, and there was a family next to me, and they had a little girl and then another child who was younger. And the little girl started asking me about my hair and the color of my hair, and if red was my favorite color, and why my entire head wasn't red and why I had this patch of gray on the side. So I explained to her that I wanted to still show my age, but red was kind of like my personality, so that's why I wanted to keep it. And she said, ask me my age, and I told her. And turns out she was 6. And she said, I couldn't be that age because I would be wrinkly and hunched over and walking with a cane. Mm-hmm. And so here she is at 6, already has this image of what a person in their 70s would be like.
Well, where she gets that from. If you look at a lot of the fairy tales that kids look at,
right,
the old people are portrayed, as hunched over on canes, just the way she's describing it. Yeah.
Correct, and that's my whole agenda, really, my whole platform, and why I'm working on this film project also, which very well much about, because I see this all the way, to helping children look at older people differently. But that's another story.
Well, let's turn to the last film for tonight, and because it's the one about a woman who's Asian, and I wanted to include this because it's very difficult to find. At least I had some difficulty finding movies that really focus on the woman and doesn't make the woman just a subplot. If you look at On Golden Pond, Jane Fonda, she's a subplot, Henry Fonda plot, and we tend to really spend a lot more time on men aging than women aging in film.
I'm thinking of Driving Miss Daisy. She was the main character, actually.
Well, it could be Morgan Freeman too, and
right. Well, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, and if you look at A Streetcar Named Desire, she's aging, and she's fearful of aging, and she tries to make herself younger than she is.
Right.
But again, she's a secondary character to Marlon Brando.
Right.
And and so it's hard to find a really strong movie about a woman. This is as close as we could come. I think you suggested this film. I didn't know about it. I had to go and watch it. But let's play. The next film is called "I'll See You in My Dreams."
Right.
And then we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Is this your first time?
Yeah.
Yes. Same. What are your interests?
I'm going to cut to the chase here, if that's okay. Sex is still very important to me. I mean, I don't have herpes, but it's okay with me if you do.
So that wasn't so bad. I live a long, healthy life for that. What the hell was I doing in there?
Oh, lighten up.
Excuse me? You seem,
You thought I was dead?
You are a good drinking buddy.
Guys ask about you all the time, Carol.
Don't start with the second husband talk. Couldn't pay me.
But they do pay you when they die.
You don't need all that. It's right the way you are.
Is there any karaoke around tonight?
You're lonely. Growing old was the furthest thing from our minds.
You've had a great life, Mom. You had a great husband and a career in music.
It's all in the past tense. You're the best of what I have. You and Dad.
I want to have lunch with you. What's your name?
Yes.
Your name is Yes?
Carol.
I'm Bill. People that retire with all their money, they don't know what to do with themselves. I didn't want to end up like that. I don't like being alone.
Is there something you'd like to share with the group?
I don't know what the hell I'm doing. People can spend their whole lives trying to find that feeling, and in the end, everybody gets it. 'Cause I cried a river over you. Hey, actually, you still have any of that medical marijuana?
It's got to warm up. I know what I'm doing. All right, let's get this going.
You guys having a party?
No.
Isn't that fantastic?
Great movie. You know, I love the character. You know, this is a long widowed Carol. She has a pretty well-ordered life. She gets up early in the morning. She does the housekeeping. She needs to, all the things she needs to do. She has a regular bridge game with some old friends who live in a nearby senior community. You know, she has a well-structured life, but she's a bit disconnected from her friends. You can tell that. And she's opted to live in a house on her own, not with them, you know, not with the community center. And after her dog dies, she has a dog she's very attached to. After her dog dies, her life's a little more lonely. And disorder begins to enter her life in the form of a black rat in the house. And she asks for the new pool cleaning guy, Lloyd. His name is Lloyd, to investigate. And it's a weird, tentative friendship starts to blossom between the aimless, bearded, much younger Lloyd and Carol. And he takes her out to a karaoke bar where her long lost identity as a singer reasserts itself. You know, and she sings "Cry Me a River," which is so apropos, you know, for what she's feeling. And then the pair looks, you know, askance at each other, and the idea of romance begins to rear its head. There's an age difference of 4 decades at least. But you know, and you know, when women do that, they're cougars. When men do it, they're handsome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's whatever. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, and you know, so they begin to engage in this relationship, and before the question gets past any implied age, Carol, after a disastrous scene of speed dating session that she went to, you know, and she accepts the date from Bill, and Bill's played by Sam Elliott. Now, what woman wouldn't want to be in a relationship with Sam Elliott? Yeah, so they picked the right guy for the job, you know.
Right.
You know, and he's a laid back, delightful kind of guy, and he takes Carol out of his boat, and which he's cherished, which is his major achievement in life.
Right.
And they listen to some Miles Davis music, and Carol picks up the reference. Bill is duly impressed, and it's smooth sailing for their romance until it's no longer.
Right.
And again, it's one of these poignant love stories, very similar to what we started with The Notebook. And in this case, it focuses on a woman who's going through the same thing, kind of, that James Garner was going through at the end of the movie. And she's trying to figure out, who the hell am I, and who should I be with, and do I need someone romantically to fulfill my life? You know, people at that age still have needs, and they still have for companionship.
Absolutely. Listen, you know, I reference many times. There's it was on Netflix, and it was with, why can't I think of his name right now? Oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? From Cheers, what's his name? Why can't I think of his name right now? Anyway, and Men on the Inside, and you know, it's about this character who goes undercover in a senior living community, But I think it's dealt with a very deft hand, because it shows, just like in this film, that people, still have needs and desires, and a couple gets married there, and then, one man, his son never comes to visit him, and then he comes to realize that he doesn't need to move to where his son is moving to, because he never visits him anyway, and that he has things that he wants to do and friends that he enjoys exactly where he is. And, there are many other little vignettes in that series. I would encourage people to watch it. The only thing about it that kind of gets me is that all these people are still kind of away from society. That's my thing about assisted living. It's like out of sight, out of mind. You're over there and you're not really integrated into the community. So people don't see older people in that way, and, I think that it's hard because of that perspective about older people is easy to maintain when they're someplace else and you don't see them.
Sure. I spent a good deal of my adult life. I was involved in adult education starting in the 1980s in higher education. And I taught courses at the World Trade Center before it was demolished in the early 80s. And then I went on to teach online in the 90s at several universities. So I wasn't in a workplace. I wasn't on a campus. I wasn't around people. I was in front of my computer, and everybody I knew was virtual. Every student was virtual.
Right.
And I would have administrative meetings where occasionally I would go on campus, but mostly it was on the screen.
Right.
So now as I've aged, I now I have the radio station. It's all done with computers, and it's virtual, and I'm very reclusive, and I don't feel lonely. Somebody else might feel extremely lonely. I don't, and so much of who we are is what we've done, and how we've worked, and what kind of environment have we worked. And
I agree.
And while I did teach on campus for many years, it moved more and more into online. And so, again, when we look at these movies and we look at aging, there are plenty of people who age, and while they may think about it would be nice if somebody was in my life every day, their life is so full that it's not a major issue. So people age differently, and it has a lot to do with what we've done. That's why I started out about Schmidt.
Right.
This guy had a meaningless life in work, and and now he doesn't know what to do. What you're doing. I know what I'm doing, and we have these lives after work, but it's very hard for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Well, Mel, this has been another great conversation about, the important topic of how older people are depicted in films throughout the years. In I think every one of these films, the subject matter is really treated with a deft hand, but I wish it had more of an impact in how we value, care for, and treat the subject of aging and older adults in our society in general. And I hope the viewers and listeners reflect on how we can elevate the voices and offer dignity, respect, and quality of life for those who are often set aside, discounted, neglected, not necessarily in their own families. I'm not saying that they do that, but in society as a whole.
Look, I mean, that would be a valued outcome. And we tend to always say that media has a big impact on people, but you have to remember it's 2 hours of entertainment, and people leave, and they don't often take the lessons they've learned or seen on screen with them.
I agree.
It's 2 hours with popcorn.
I agree.
So
thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. It's really been great.
It was a pleasure, Phyllis, and the show is great, and I really enjoyed being your guest. Thank you.
So thank you. So now I'd like to turn to next week's guest on Senior Nation. I'm thrilled to have Nora Duncan, AARP Connecticut State Director. And Nora, she's an extremely busy gal. She was able to carve out some time from her schedule to join me on Senior Nation on September 17th. And I've interviewed Nora when I hosted a pilot TV show on Harvard Public Access Television years ago, and also on my previous podcast, Senior Straight Talk. So Nora is a wealth of knowledge, a dynamic spokesperson, and she is a compelling guest. So I assure you, you won't want to miss it. So remember to tune in, comment, and ask questions on Wednesday, September 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the SORC TVRadio Network. And until then, take care, stay well, and stay tuned.
Go for it, go for it. I'm just saying I'm not finished yet. Search for it, swing for it. Discover the me that lives in yes. Stand for it, stretch for it. It's my time, imagine my best. Run for it, reach for it. Uncover the me that lives in yes. I know, yes I know. There'll be miracles wherever I go. It's not work, it's play. I can make